on the autism spectrum across different stages of life. So thank you so much for joining us, Jace, and just giving us an insight on this beautiful topic. Just to start off, Jace, I just would like you to, how can you kindly explain autism in simple words on everyday terms for everyone joining us today?
Oh, there isn't really a simple way to explain autism because by its nature, it's very complex. It's a spectrum. But I guess let's just say that autism is a neurodevelopmental difference. So it is present from birth, where it affects a population where they will experience the world differently in the way that they interact with the world. So how somebody communicates, how they process information, and how they relate to others.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. And what would be the biggest misconception about that people still have about autism, if I may ask?
There are many, but I think from my experience, it's probably that autism looks a particular way. So, maybe the idea, the stereotype of the little boy in the corner who's not speaking, who's playing with trains, where it can really look very, very different for everybody. The other very big misconception is that autistic people are innately introverted or maybe even antisocial, or maybe that they don't have empathy. Many autistic people love interacting with other people and they experience intense empathy, but it's just expressed differently to how most allistic or neurotypical people might express it.
Thank you for that. I think you explained it clearly for everybody that is listening in today. And why is finding support or a community so important for autistic individuals? Do you mind sharing that?
Yeah, so I think, support and community is a massive protective factor against all mental illness. There was a psychologist called Alfred Adler. He was a brilliant psychotherapist who was way ahead of his time, and he believed that we all fundamentally need two things, and one is belonging, and the other is significance. So we need to belong to a group, and then we also need to know how do we as an individual uniquely contribute to that group. And we all need that, whether we're autistic or not autistic.
No, thank you. And I take from what you're saying is that belonging to a community could also help every single person, whether you're
Yeah,
autistic or not, but a community is something that is very beneficial that people could support from. So thank you
100%.
for that. So I just want to say that from your own experience, right? Because that's
Mm.
something you share with your people. Is that what are some biggest challenges that autistic adults face when trying to find support?
Well, I think the reality is that there isn't a lot of support available to autistic adults. A lot of autism is for like autism awareness, and the resources available are focused on children. So education services, OT, play therapy, sensory integration, all of those things are for children. But if you're late diagnosed, then where do you go? What do you do? There's not really a prescriptive what's the next step. And unfortunately, this can be very scary putting yourself out there for anyone who's looking for support. It's a scary thing. It's very vulnerable. But then if you add a thick layer of like social anxiety on top of that, then that barrier can be extremely hard to break through. And so then that leads to more isolation, which leads to more anxiety and then depression, and then the cycle can continue.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing that. And for somebody who's on the spectrum, what does meaningful support look like?
Honestly, I think it looks pretty much the same as support looks for anyone. I've facilitated groups for parents and students and people with substance use problems, for autistic individuals, and we all really want the same thing. We want a non-judgmental space where we can feel heard and seen, and
Mhm.
a place to process our emotions, something like when it feels really uncomfortable, and to get the sense that we're not alone. So many people come to the group thinking that they want tips and ideas on how to experience life, but then when they leave, they say, "Oh no, this was actually the value was in feeling connected to a community."
Okay, thank you so much for that. And I hope people are learning from the discussion that we're having today. But for somebody who has been diagnosed, right, or they might think that they might be autistic, what would be
Mm.
the good step that they could take to get the help they
So
need?
Yeah, so I don't want to be prescriptive because there isn't a one size fits all answer
Yeah.
to this. But I do know that after diagnosis, there's often a very, very intense sense of overwhelm. It's like your whole sense of self has been like fragmented into a million places, and you might feel like you're struggling to put that back together again. So the first thing is to recognize that that is completely normal. It's part of the process. And then second, it's really helpful to have someone to talk to about that. So either a friend or a therapist or another autistic individual who's been through that, and they can assure you that there is actually light at the end of the tunnel. You'll find your solid footing again. So things like support groups or online communities, or even in-person meetups where you can meet other individuals like yourself. If you think you might be autistic, again, there's lots of different avenues because it depends what you want. You might not particularly want an actual diagnosis. It might be enough to self-identify, and that's absolutely accepted in the autistic community. Not everyone has access to the diagnostic process. It can be a long and expensive process. There are great online resources to find out more things about autism. So like YouTube channels. I love Autism from the Inside. Yo Samdy Sam is good. And the Neurodivergent Doctor is also awesome. I would stay away from like those very short TikToks that say like 5 things why you definitely have autism, because there's actually research that shows that a lot of that is not true. So find long format videos that have people who both are autistic, so you can hear it from a personal experience, and people who've done their research on what the actual experience is. But then if you do want to pursue a formal diagnosis, then it's really important to find mental health professionals who are up to date with autism research and the evolving paradigms, because we don't want to get stuck in the past and old stereotypes. So places like the Neurodiversity Center and the Spectrum Center can help with that. And that can also help with applying for things like concessions at work or university. And it also helps with imposter syndrome because a lot of late diagnosed individuals also feel like, wait, how can this be real? How can I have gotten through life this far, and have this be a new part of my identity that I never noticed? And that when you have a trusted professional to talk to, they can also help you through that experience.
Oh, thank you so much. As you mentioned that having a community is very important, belonging is very important. How then can family members or loved ones be
Mm,
supportive to their loved ones and in a helpful manner, not
mm,
making it feel like it's overwhelming for them to do it?
mm. Just by listening. Like they're really that simple. Just listen to understand. And even if the experience doesn't make sense to you, and it's very hard to understand, just listen with the intention to understand, because that'll help you with the urge to either give advice or to potentially negate the person's experience. If you're in doubt on like how to do this, it's really simple. You just invite someone to talk to you, and then when they're done talking, you just say, "Thank you for telling me that." Then you don't give an opinion, you don't give a solution, you don't try and give an explanation, you just give appreciation for the fact that they're sharing that with you. And then another option is to also go for your own support because, if you're caring for someone who is autistic, then that's also going to put a burden on you in a way. Anybody who cares about another person also needs someone to care about them. So getting your own support, speaking to your own therapist, finding your own support group. The more that we can find support in our own circles, the better. So just listen and find a place where you can feel listened to.
No, thank you. As you mentioned that finding a support group, what will make it feel safe as well as welcoming for somebody who is diagnosed with autism or is, may have symptoms for it.
So I think with the reason why support groups particularly feel safe for autistic people is because it's structured. And so a lot of the social rules are sort of provided up front. So we know what we're going to do. We're going to do a check-in first, then we're going to share, then we're going to close. We often we have explicit rules for what the conduct is going to be and what the conversation is going to be about. Things like one person gets to talk at a time, or put your hand up before you talk. And being able to have those rules up front helps autistic people know what to expect and how to engage socially. Generally speaking, it's the rules of the conversation are up front, so we know what we're going to be talking about, whether it is a special interest. Because generally autistic people don't like talking small talk. And we do things like encouraging people to share their special interests or to stim during the meeting. So if you want to doodle on a piece of paper, if you want to play with putty, if you want to chew on something, if you want to do a fiddle toy, that's absolutely encouraged. So it's just that you can be your authentic self in the meeting and know that no one's going to judge you for doing that.
No, I like the fact that, you get to do whatever you need to just to feel safe, and then it's a matter of feeling heard in the group as well. So I think that's very interesting, and I think which could make people want to join a support group. And thank you, Sherry, for those, those tips on what would be ways to make it safe for individuals. But then what would
Mm.
be some small practical things that people can do for them to feel less alone in their daily livings?
So is this for autistic people or for any people?
Sorry, Jess?
So is this what people in general can do to feel less alone, or autistic people in
Yes,
particular?
in general.
In general, so joining any community, like we've said, community is incredibly important. Um, and to find people to connect with, just any type of connection. So if you are, you can start small, you can start online, but then maybe if you're feeling brave, then, go out looking for something. Maybe even, and we could take a page from the autistic book and go with a special interest. So if you have a hobby, something that you really like, let's, for example, say that you like plants, then go to the botanical gardens and find out there if there are any groups that you can join. Maybe there's a walking group, maybe there's people who also are interested in particular plants, and then join there, because then there's no real it's not like a romantic relationship or a social relationship where there is a lot of risk for intimacy. It's you're just meeting on an interest level. And so it can be quite a safe relationship, but it also fulfills that need to be social. And then also just to recognize that making new connections is hard for everybody, right? It's a vulnerable thing that we do. It's hard, especially as an adult, to make friends. When you're a kid, you make friends because there's kids in your school and you just kind of they're there. But when you're an adult, like your life is already sort of predetermined. You go to work, you do things in certain circles, and so it's harder to meet people. But there are ways to do it, and I think that is a really important thing to know that there are ways. For example, one of the members in our group, she uses an app called, I think it's Meetup. And it's you can meet people and you just go and do social events, and it's kind of like a dating app but for friendship, which is really cool. Like there's like no pressure and you can come as you are, and to just know that like people want to be friends with you, people want to connect. You're not a burden to anybody. You have something to offer, and to just keep reminding yourself that that's true and that other people want to connect with you, and you will find your people. You don't need to fit into another type of circle. You don't need to change yourself to fit into their circle. Go find your own circle.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Jace. I just want to ask is that how can then society do better, when it comes to understanding as well as including autistic people or individuals?
I think very importantly to move away from stereotypes and to listen to actual autistic perspectives. So if there's ever anything that you're doing about autism, then ask autistic people. There is a lot of misconceptions about autistic people, and there is a lot of value that can come from these groups. So I think, yeah, just again, listening to the voices of the people in the group. There's a saying with all disabilities, there's nothing about us without us. And I think that's something to stay true to in all different circles, whether it's, promoting mental health or whether it's in the workplace, whether it's just anyway at school, even at a government level, just including the voices that you're trying to cater to.
Okay. And what changes then would you like to see in communities as well in workspaces, to support autistic individuals better?
I think the first thing to emphasize very much is that improving accessibility and inclusivity for any kind of marginalized group it improves well-being for everybody. So focusing on improvements is actually a win-win for everyone. It's not that we're just catering to one population, it's that everyone actually benefits. There's no loss to the majority group if we are inclusive. So I think on a practical level, training for employees to understand neurodiversity, and then also hiring practices that don't either disadvantage autistic candidates or maybe even promote the hiring of people with differences. I think taking people at face value. So I think it's very painful because of the way that like, neurodiversity presents. It's kind of known as the invisible disability, where it's this thing about you, but no one can see it. So there's often this sort of implicit need to justify your struggles, your challenges. And I think if you're listening to someone explain what's difficult for them, it's really, really hard. Um, when you've built up the courage to like share your experience and vulnerability with someone only for them to disregard it and to invalidate that experience. So that brings us back to just listening to those perspectives. I think that looking at their challenges and recognizing those, and then also looking at the assets that many individuals in the spectrum have. So things like attention to detail, they'll notice the improvements that need to be made in systems, and then extreme passions for special interests and creativity and out of the box thinking. And then for places to just embrace these ideas and just learn to think outside the box and be willing and open to accept that novelty and those new ideas. I think it'll create a really beautiful world.
And I hope, that could change just for people to feel like they're included, especially in communities and
Yeah.
workplaces. And what would you say to somebody who feels like they don't belong or feel like they're misunderstood? What would you say?
Number one, you're not alone. Number
Mhm.
two, you're worthy of all the things that you desire, even if you don't believe it yet, it's true. And there are many people who will hold that belief for you, even while you can't. When you're ready to believe it, we'll have it waiting for you. Um, and then just to find people who see you. They're really out there. It's not going to be easy sometimes, but don't give up. Keep looking. Don't settle for being someone that you're not. It takes a lot of energy to mask as an autistic individual in a group and trying to pretend that you are somewhere that you're not, and to suppress your autistic urges and to try and be something that you're not. And that can lead to a whole host of mental health issues. So I know it's scary to show up as yourself, but it is worth it in the end when you find the true connections, the people that are really meant for you.
All right. And from the work that you do, because you share so much about autism, but and the lived experience that you have had, can you kindly please share a story or a moment, that would highlight the power of a community in the autistic space?
Sure.
One
I
or
mean,
two
I've
in
had the
particular.
privilege. Yeah, I've had the privilege of you know being witness to people's journeys now for almost 2 years, and to see where everyone has started, and then to see how everyone's grown. And it's an amazing thing to be able to watch that process and to see how we've like flourished, and people have um, you know, reached milestones that they never thought they would. They've reached a sense of self-acceptance that they never thought they would get, and now are becoming they start being, I don't actually know if I should disclose that I'm autistic. I don't know if anyone should know, and now they're advocates for autism, which I think is beautiful. One particular story that comes to mind, and I do have permission to share this, is one of the members. She joined for a few months, and it was towards the end of the year where everything is completely chaotic and there's all these deadlines and all these things to do. And after that happened, about a month after the December chaos, she sent me a message saying, this is the first year in I don't know how many years that I'm not burnt out at the end of the year. The whole year stayed the same. The environment was the same. The workload was the same. The pressure was the same. But having that sense of community, though, every 2 weeks, coming and just letting it out, talking through what your struggles are, and just having someone to hear you and connect with, that was enough to actually prevent burnout for the first time in as many years as she could remember. And I think that is the a really powerful thing that we don't quantify. We don't know that that's going to happen. We just think, okay, well, we're going to go and share our problems. What's that going to do? But that means that she could be there for her children more. She was able to enjoy being with the family and really be present for the holiday. And so it was a really, really amazing holiday for her, whereas all the other holidays were spent recovering from burnout and going straight back into work.
No, and you know what I'm taking from the conversation that we're having is that listening is quite, it plays a big role, you know, and feeling like you belong, you know, helps with
Mhm.
people that are diagnosed with autism as well, you know, and a
Mhm.
community is very important, you know, on the journey that
Yeah.
one is on. But lastly, I just want to get you know, how can you then get people to get involved in the static support groups or find ways that they can help, they can get the help that they need?
Yeah, so they can go to the static website. They'll find a whole list of support groups, not just autism, but all different types of support groups, and they can find one that's right for them. They can also call the autistic, not the autistic, the static call center, and they'll be referred to different support resources that they might need. And then also, if there isn't a support group, if you go to the static website and there isn't a support group there, and it goes, oh, I'm not finding the people, then you can sign up and start your own support group, and you never know where you might be a couple of years from now. When I started the autistic adults group, it took quite a few weeks for people to start joining. And my first one, I had one person, and I was like, oh, maybe there isn't a need for this. Oh, this is a bit. Maybe I'm the only person out there, and it can be a little bit scary. But now we have so many regulars, and it's just an amazing, amazing group to be part of. So, if you don't find it, start it.
And any last words that you would like to share with our viewers today?
I think I'm just really grateful that there is awareness around autism, and that autistic people are being asked to advocate for the community and the needs, and just a reminder to always be kind to everybody, take them at their face value. Everyone's going through something. So be kind to yourself, be kind to everybody else. Um, and also, I think, which one of the things we didn't mention was, don't underestimate populations. We do often tend to have an idea in our head of what a particular person might be like, or what a population might be like. And then, there's a really popular saying, and that is that if you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person. So, yeah, just you might actually know a few. You might be friends with lots of autistic people, and you don't know, because it just presents so differently. It really is about the internal process of how you perceive the world and how you interact with it. So yeah, don't underestimate people in general, and yeah, be kind to yourselves, be kind to everybody else. It's a good thing to do.
Thank you so much, Jess, for joining us today and the great work that you're doing there, that you're creating. It really means a lot. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining today, and looking forward to seeing you on the other end as the expert. Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks. Bye.